Oh,
Links. Oh, there it is. Yep, there it is. Okay.
yeah. Give a thing we're going live and as well as being recorded. And so let's kick this off here. My name is Roy Canterbury. I'm going to be hosting Archery Talk 101. And we have Shelly with us. We're going to talk archery for a while and have lots of fun. Just want to let everybody know before we get started how you can watch or listen to the podcast. You can listen to the podcast on places like Spotify and different places you get your podcast from. You can also go out to audible.com and search for Arch Talk 101 and they'll come up. It's free to listen to on Audible. Then we can watch the video on my profile. I do have it go there live there sometimes, so you can watch it there. You can also go out to my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. And there I have not just archery stuff, but I have all kinds of other stuff. Hence, that's the name of the channel is Learn to Fix because I'm always going all kinds of different stuff. And then you can also join the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group. And that's probably one of your best groups to join because we have a lot of people with a lot of experience in there. You'll be able to watch this video as well as if you are having a trouble with your bow setup or even your shooting form, want to get a little better, upload a video of you shooting and we'll take a look at it and we'll give you some pointers and we'll go from there. So let's get started with the show. We're going to have lots of fun. So, Shelly, how about if you introduce yourself, tell us a little something about yourself and maybe how you got started in archery?
Well, Shelly Harper. um, how I got started in archery was hunting. And about the year 2000, I bought my first bow. I was a late bloomer to archery, but I got my first bow in 2000, started hunting. And of course, I've hunted my whole life, but with my dad, and he only did the rifle hunting. So that's what got me into when I started with that. I'm like, this is just going to be even more challenging.
Yes, it
So
is.
then in 2000, well, Troy, which is my other half now, he uh he was at the bow shop and we ended up getting together in 2012. Troy Carpenter, he used to shoot the pro fingers. He shot the compound with the whole open setup, but shot fingers. I guess they did away with that in 2012 or 2010. I'm sorry. So he had been 2 years since he'd been to any tournaments, but he had grew up in tournaments. I knew had no idea about tournaments. I just thought, yeah, I can't compete with those people, you know. And so he taught me a lot. We got together in 2012 and he starts talking tournament archery. And I'm like, that sounds fun. At that point, I had never shot past 20 yards. So as he taught me a little bit more, and he pulled me back to a 40-yard target and says, well, just shoot it like you do a 20-yard. I'm like, I can't shoot that far. And then what was it? A couple years later, we're standing in the front yard shooting 80, 90 yards. And it's like, wow. I mean, it's not hard as I thought it was going to be. And it wasn't as intimidating as I thought it was. It was at first, but then it was like, this is fun. This is
Yeah.
fun. And I think what got me hooked, the biggest thing to archery was most women, and our brains never stop. We just constantly go. I mean, it's no matter what we're doing, washing dishes or at work, our brains are constantly going. And for 15 to 20 seconds, there's nothing. It's
Yeah.
you're at full draw. I mean, there's nothing but you and the target. And it was like this sense of calmness that all the world shut out at that point. And it became very addictive. So started competing in 2015, went to my very first tournament, uh, which was London, Kentucky. And because that's the closest one. And it just kind of went from there. I think I finished 17th out of 80 some women at my very first tournament, and it was on.
That's good. 17 out of 80. That's good
Yes.
for your first tournament.
I think it was the women's known 40, and that's where I started, and I just was addicted since then. So, and then since then, over the past year and a half, I picked up a bear bow. Troy got me one for my birthday about a year and a half ago, and I have become addicted to that thing. That's hard to lay down. The recurve is really hard to lay down because it's such a challenge figuring it out. And
Right.
I'm one of those. I like challenges.
Yeah, it's kind of obvious so far, just talking to you a few minutes here.
So, but yes, I mean, I grew up showing horses and did all of that. I think I've always wanted to check about that mounted archery thing too. I think that would be a blast.
Yeah, I actually interviewed a guy that does that, and
Um,
it's completely different. Arrows on the other side. So a right-hander normally puts on the left side, but they put on the right side. They draw back with their thumb because that pulls the arrow into the bow. Because a normal one, you'd never keep it on.
right.
So they're galloping along and shooting and yeah, it looks like
And
a
there's no
big challenge.
shelf. There's no shelf. You shoot it off of your hand.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, because
it's,
it
I
wouldn't
don't
stay on
know.
the shelf.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's bouncing
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to watch and talk to people that have done it, and it's very interesting. But a lot of us don't get a chance to even see it live because it's not
Right.
real popular here in the States.
It's not real popular. And it's hard to find somewhere that actually does any of it.
Yeah, but
So, but no, I think
a
it would
lot of
be interesting.
overseas, yeah, a lot of
Yes.
overseas countries will do that, and that's kind of interesting. But so now you picked up recurve. You were shooting a compound before?
Yes.
Okay. So now in your recurve, there's tons of different methods of aiming
Oh,
and stuff like that and anchoring. Um, what method did you settle in on?
now I've just, I string walk because, well, with bare bow, I can string walk.
Right,
Um, and I'm basically my arrows point on. A lot of people talks about that eclipse in
right,
aiming where you eclipse the top of the arrow at somewhere on the target. I'm so used to shooting a pin, point of my arrow is on, and that's kind of where I aim and just kind of pull through the shot. And yeah, it's been figuring out alignment, figuring out a weight. Of course, I started at 26. Now I'm at 30. So I didn't jump in weight real fast. I wanted to fix everything first.
right. If you start drawing too much weight, then you're struggling, and I've seen so many archers that try and draw across their chest, which is using the weakest muscles in your whole upper body to draw across, or they'll take the bow way up high and try and draw down and come down and all this movement. And I always told archers, if you can't draw it back slowly like the deer is looking at you, it's too much weight.
And if you
And
can't draw back, whether it's a compound or recurve or whatever, if you can't draw it back with your point on target, it's too much weight.
right now, I don't know why, but a lot of Olympic archers will raise their arm up and draw back and drop down on it. Um, for me, that's you're pulling down with the weak muscles pulling down on your arm. You're not strong that way. So why are you trying to pull down? Um, but it's real close to what I know. I know or teach point the arrow to the target, your bow at the target, look at your target, bend slightly forward as you draw back. And now as you draw back, you stand up straight. If you're standing up straight, you always end up leaning back. I've seen so many archers stand up straight. Next thing you know, they're leaning back. So you got to straighten them up. So bend slightly, but it's not, that raised, it's not clear shooting into the sky trying to draw.
Right. And I probably, with me, I have a little bit of push while I'm drawing, not a drastic, just
Right,
enough that I know that I can keep that during my shot.
right.
So
And it's,
it kind of sets that little bit of a forward motion without going overboard.
yeah, I don't lock the arm out. You see, I don't lock your arm out. The problem with locking your arm is there's no movement but sideways.
Right.
And I teach I spent many years in martial arts, and everything is, forward to your target, through the target, and and in order, like you're going to break a board, you've got to go through it, not at any kind of an angle. It's got to be perfectly straight, or you bounce off and you hurt your hand or whatever you're hitting it with. Well, the same thing I do, with the bow. I want that arrow to be pushed straight towards the target. And one of the things I use to help out if my form's a little bit messed up, not something's not working right, is I have a string. I have a big roll of loop material. I'll make a loop around that's around my thumb, and it's my draw length. Now then, I'll hook my release to it. You could probably do it with fingers, but I use a release because I have a compound, and I'll draw back. And when I release that off of that, that string should jump straight off my thumb, straight to the target. If it doesn't, my form is off because that's affecting the arrow. And you'll see some try to do an open stance, where instead of being straight to the target, they're off to the side. And now what you're doing was the back of the hand, you're trying to push out. You're fighting the force of the bow pushing out. And I teach a completely closed stance. The disadvantage of a completely closed stance, if you don't have that hand position right, you will hit your arm. 100% of the
Absolutely.
time, you will hit the arm. Now, I
Absolutely.
shoot I shoot my recurve the same way. Same form, same jaw length, everything, except I'm using fingers instead of a release. So my hand is a different spot on my face, but I don't hit my arm because I don't, grab like a bat
Yeah.
and lock that arm out. It's turned, so it turns out. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but as you turn your hand, your elbow moves out of the way. And that meaty part that you always hit is now out of the way. And I do the same thing. The same thing. I'm pushing straight to that target and it goes out. Um, that's just the way I teach it. I teach everybody the exact same thing, and then we modify it because everybody's different.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Like when my sister started with her recurve like 7, 8 weeks ago now. Of course, she started with a compound last year, but but she started with the recurve about 7, 8 weeks ago. She has some major shoulder issues, and to get into alignment, it's actually painful for her right now. And she's a lefty, so what we did with her stance, because she kept having right arrows and right arrows and right arrows, and in order for her to change the string blur to hit in the center, it was past her arrow. So I told her, I said, well, instead of the door just shut, instead of trying to change your string blur that much to bring it over, let's close your stance up. Of course, you remember she's a lefty. And so I said, and what that creates is instead of here, you're here now, but
right.
don't change anything else. Just close your stance and do it the same way. And it brought her over. So I've learned a little bit just by helping her too.
Right. Now, one of the things that I do is you can put an arrow on the target, pointing straight to your target. Put your both toes on both feet, both feet, the toes, right at the edge of the arrow, so that your toes are in a straight line to the target. Well, you can't do an open stance that, but with a closed stance, now then you're lined up straight to your target. Now, the other thing that I will teach some to do is come back to full draw, especially with compounds. It's a little bit easier. Come back to compounds with your eyes closed. Open your eyes. Are you on target? Well, you need to change something. Your stance is wrong. Something is wrong. We used to do that when you're shooting precision rifles. I was on rifle team in high school, and that's what we'd do is we'd get on the target, close our eyes, take a breathe in, breathe out, open our eyes. If we're not on target, we might have to slide my knee, your knee a half inch,
Right.
or you move your toe or something until you could breathe in, eyes closed, breathe out, open your eyes, you're on target. Next time, breathe in, out, squeeze trigger. Well, you can do the
And I've
same
done
thing
it
with
for like
archery.
close your eyes for like 8 seconds and count to 8 with your eyes closed while you're at full draw and see where it drifts to.
Right. Yeah. That's all stuff we can kind of look at when we're having troubles with something. And
Right.
and that's the part where you need an instructor that knows how to fix these different things because they're real tough to fix yourself.
They are extremely tough to fix yourself. And another thing that I noticed that I was doing early on was when I would close my eyes and see where I was drifting, after you fix the drift, then I kept drifting low as I was holding. So then I worked on, learning that lat muscle a little bit to help to hold it a little bit, learning that little bit of a forward push, not, I'm not shoving it to the target,
Right.
just that little bit of the forward push to maintain to keep my my pin on the target. So closing the eyes and learning just to feel that helped a lot too.
Yeah. And one of the things with the compound advantage that is you have a wall.
Yes, you
So you,
do.
so you can push against that wall and it's not going to go any further. So you can put a little bit more pressure. Recurve, don't stop
No,
until it breaks.
exactly. It don't stop until you can't pull any further.
Right. So there you have to learn how to put a little pressure, just enough pressure to keep it from collapsing on you. And that just reminded me of a video I watched a long time ago. This guy thought he was stronger than he really was. He's struggling, draw the bow back. It's compound. It's probably only 60 pound, but who knows what it is. So he's drawn back. He finally gets it drawn back, and he must not have had the hand correctly in there. It must have been on the thumb. And all of a sudden it slipped off his hand. The bow come back and smacked him in the face. It hit him. He still had all the string. So of course, what's it going to do? It's going to come back and hit him. I laughed because the guy was being stupid.
Right.
He was being stupid. He kind of deserved it. Quit
Right.
trying to do more than what you can do. And it's kind of interesting when you get a small person, drawing a 70-pound bow, and then you get a football player and can't draw it back.
Right.
Different muscles.
And and that's just like I ended up, of course, I grew up on a farm, so I was on a farm my whole life. So I had a little more strength than most women, I guess.
Yeah.
But so I think I started right at 50 pounds. And of course, my tournament bow now, I don't shoot any more than 60 pounds. I could, but do I need to? No. I shoot 60 pounds with my compound at the ASAs. Of course, I'm shooting the unknown yardage at the
Right.
ASAs also. So I need all the speed I can get for to fix my
Yes.
judging faults, which I need to practice judging more. but but I don't go any more than I know my limitations. So and I don't push it any further than that. And I think that's sometimes what does hurt people. When you start pushing too fast, too much, then that just breaks your form down and you
Right.
can't make a correct shot. You can't draw it correctly. You can't set up correctly because you're just fighting everything.
Yeah. And back, like we talked about earlier, it's like if you can't draw it back slowly, like a deer is watching you, it's too much weight. And,
Exactly.
you know, speed is okay to a point. When you start hunting, speed is not your friend.
No, it's not.
You
No,
might
it is
think it
not.
is, but it is not. Well, for one thing, you're trying to get a broadhead. Even a mechanical is going to affect it slightly, but a fixed blade, you start approaching that 300 feet per second. It's very hard to control a broadhead because you got all the wings up front, you got the fletching in the back. Helps you have feathers because they're a little more
Right.
drag, which is what I shoot. But it gets really hard to tune that broadhead to be consistent and group like the other broadheads in your quiver. So then that's when mechanicals start coming into play because they're not as affected, by the speed as much. But then you got to make sure that broadhead will handle the speed. Like you take a regular mechanical, put on a crossbow, it's going to open them up,
Right.
and that defeats the purpose of having a mechanical. Um, so you've got all kinds of things, and speed is not your friend because it gets real hard to control.
Well, and then you have to take that with your kinetic energy. When you get too heavy, not enough speed, you lose kinetic energy. But when you
Right,
get too much speed without a heavy enough arrow, you're losing kinetic energy. So you have to find, and there's several charts out there that you can put your specifications in, and it will give you how much kinetic energy that you're actually shooting. And I have done it sometimes just put in just to see the different weights. What gives me the most just playing around with one? What gives me
right.
the most kinetic energy for hunting? And I shoot a fixed blade on my hunting bow. I've dropped down to I hunt about 55 pounds. And the only reason I drop it down is I'm here in West Virginia. So we have some cold days, and some days are really cold. I've sat in a blind all day at 22 degrees, 20 degrees, spitting snow. And when that deer walks in, if you've sat there, you're tense because you're cold, and you've sat there, even for 2 hours like that, you go to draw your bow back, it ain't working. And it's not the buck's fault or the deer's fault. You have just tensed all of your muscles up, and then you're trying to pull too much poundage. So, I back my hunting bows down off of poundage just for that reason, that I know I'm still able to draw it back, even if I am freezing to death, and even if it is a monster buck.
Well, I've had that happen to me one time. I shoot 70 pounds. Well, I was then, I don't know because right now I can't shoot my bow right now. So
Oh,
um other problems. Um so I was shooting 70 pounds. Come hunting season, I quit practicing basically because I had one bow at the time and I got it set up for broadheads, which don't fly like field tips. So I didn't really do much shooting. And then I climb up in a tree one morning. I climbed in, got in a tree, and I always like to draw my bow back just to kind of check stuff. I went to drop back. I couldn't drop back. No matter
uh-oh.
what I did, I could not get it drawn back. Now that was before I really knew you know, back tension release, and I'm just kind of doing it, like most people do that haven't been taught because I hadn't been taught yet. Um, and I could not pull it back, and I'm struggling, and it's like, and I'm hurting muscles and stuff. So I sat there. It's like, well, do I go home or sit? I said, let's sit there for a while. I warmed up a little bit, even though I just walked in, and I sat there. I was able to draw it back, but yeah, I hurt for about a week trying to pull that bow back, and and after that's a good either don't stop practicing so you keep your
Right,
strength up or back it down for hunting season and have your bow. I have more than one bow now, so I have
right.
one just for hunting. So
Yes.
I don't really want to crank it down because I have to readjust all my pins. But right now, I had some heart surgery. I had a bypass, and then had to go
Oh,
back in, and then I was just about ready to get there, and then here a couple months ago, the guy decided he didn't want to stop and hit me when I was turning, and I had a pretty heavy car. It's actually heavier than his. He hit. I was doing 29 when he hit me. I spun around. I was doing 40 mile an hour backwards.
oh,
That's
wow.
how hard he hit me. Shoved the bumper
Wow.
into the tire. So right now I'm just struggling just to keep my balance. Got a
Right.
concussion out of it, and it's getting worse. So now I'm in rehab for that. So um,
Wow.
I had struggle just holding my bow up, let alone trying to draw it. So
I hear
I'm
that.
I'm gonna be out of shooting for a while, and
But you'll get back. You'll you'll
yeah,
you'll
yeah.
you'll push through this, and you'll get back and be
I
doing
may
it
have
before you
to.
know it.
Yeah, I've got a left-handed 25-pound bow that I'm right-handed, actually right-handed. I might go ahead and make a string for it, and at least I can get some kind of motion at 25 because my recurve is 40 or
Oh, wow.
45. Um, and I shoot all the time, and I don't do the string walking. When I first heard about string walking, I was like, and I was watching the show Skinwalker Ranch, and it's like I'm thinking, what string walking, skinwalker, same thing? What is it? And then I finally had um, somebody on that did the string walking and explained it. And then I've seen some other videos, and I think I've watched Jake Kaminsky.
Yeah.
I see he's got some really good stuff for recurves, and I was like, okay, now that kind of makes sense. And then others they will go through and they look at the tip of the arrow, and then they adjust it from that and all that, and I and all that just seems too complicated. I'm just gonna put sights on it. If I'm gonna use a tip of an arrow that changes no matter where I'm at, you truly use as a reference, or I got to sit there and move up and down, count threads on the serving to see where I'm at, and I've had somebody that did it and they actually walked up the string instead of just down.
Oh. I
So instead of,
saw a video somebody did that here a while back
yeah,
ago.
yeah,
I don't
I've
know that
probably
I want to
seen
do that,
video.
but
Well, and it was kind of weird, it's like, okay, instead of normally either three fingers below or two fingers below, then you move, one finger below and draw from that way, and then you can move up and above, and um, it just it just seems like it's wouldn't give you good arrow flight.
no, I always walk. I'm three under. Of course, I have a. I think I'm at an eighth inch tiller difference for the string walking. So,
Yeah, it changes a
which
little
I
bit.
don't walk a real deep walk anyway. I don't have a real deep crawl at all. So it works out. It works out good. And we was talking about hunting, and one of the best things you can do for your hunting, for archery hunting, is go shoot a tournament. Go
Yeah,
shoot a tournament that means something, not just go shoot a tournament for fun. Go shoot a tournament that means something because of what you put on yourself at a tournament, the pressure to at least place better than half the pack, even if you're just
yeah,
a newbie or something. But the pressure that you put on yourself to get a decent finish, or just the nerves of being at one, will help you so much with your hunting. And I didn't realize, I hunted from 2000 till 2015 was my very first tournament. And what I learned at the tournaments, when I finally applied it to hunting, it was, it was, I was like, how did I never know this before? I was in my blind, and I had at this time, it was one of the biggest bucks that I had ever had come into to range for me. And I was sitting there, and of course, it's a big buck, so all those nerves start. And he finally, and he come in dead at me. So by the time he actually turned, he was only like 13 yards.
oh,
And I went
that's
to draw
close.
my bow. Yes, it was very close. And I went to draw my bow, and I couldn't get it back. I'm like, okay. And I started remembering the tournament nerves and everything, and just thought, okay, take a deep breath. And I looked down at myself, and I'm sitting here with my arm bent. Well, you're not going to get your bow drawn back if your arm's bent. So I'm like,
No.
okay, Shelly. And it made me stop, think, and I was able to harvest him. So I suggest anybody that hunts at all, go to a tournament, but make it mean something, because it will put more pressure on yourself. So when that bigger buck, or, whatever you're after, whatever one gives you the race,
Yeah,
it will help you figure little things out. It'll
yeah,
make you
it
a better
does.
hunter.
Yeah, I remember the first time I shot at a foam target. I was like, I was kind of a little bit nervous. It's like, it's just foam. There's
Right.
nothing, but it was just that shape, and it's getting used to it. And um, I know that they did a little study one time on soldiers, and like in the First World War, how many wouldn't even pull the trigger?
Oh,
They wouldn't even shoot because they just couldn't shoot. And in World War II, they started doing more. And then when they started using silhouettes to practice, now then you started getting the human shape, and then more was able to do it. And then now with the video games and stuff like that, now then it's not much different. And for hunting, if you have, they call it dart system. It's a video screen. You put little mushroom tips on, and you actually shoot at the screen. And there's
wow.
actually deer in the video. Um, I don't know if it's popular anymore, but that's something that I shot a couple of times, and that's kind of neat. You take your bow, your equipment, your arrows, everything. Just if you're using 100 grain tip, you put the 100 grain mushroom tip because it hits that mat, the screen, and then the system registers where it hit, and then it shows where you hit on the animal, and it scores you and stuff like that. That was kind of fun to do a little bit.
That would be fun to do.
You
I'd like to
know
find one of those close.
Yeah, I'm not sure who all has them anymore. I know the only archery shop that's left around here, they had one. I don't know if they have it because they've moved, and I don't know if they still use it or not. But if so, it's probably 30 years old, and it probably wore out or they replaced it. Who knows? But that
Right.
was something that was pretty cool because you get to shoot at them. And um, I know for me, I shot a lot of spots. I wasn't really enthused about shooting spot tournaments, but I use the spots to develop my skill. So I know if I put that pin in that spot, I know I'm going to hit it. Now I've got my skill where I can shoot X's, and I adjust my broadhead so I can shoot X's to my broadheads. Now, just a little note: fixed blades do not fly like field tips, so adjust your points for your broadheads, not your field points. So if you're practicing with it, they're not going to hit the center, but you don't care because you know your broadheads do. And there's a way of tuning them. And then I'd go to 3D tournaments, and that was me getting ready for hunting, judging yardage, because I've never shot a known yardage one. I prefer the unknown because I'm preparing to go hunt. So I don't want to know that. I want to judge yardage and make the shot. And when a buddy of mine was going 3D tournaments all the time, our goal was to average an 8 throughout the whole tournament. We went, if there's 40 targets, I needed an average of an 8. So I need 320 points or higher. Otherwise, it was a bad day. Um, because that means average of a kill on every target. So you
Right.
got, for you're going to 8 or 10s for any time you get a 5, you got to get probably 3 10s to make up for a 5. And so you've got to get pretty good. And I know my first 3D tournament, I had 6 or 8 arrows with me, and I'm into like fourth or fifth target, and I'm already down an arrow. And I was like, can I finish with what I have? I think I had 6 with me. It's like, can I do 40 targets with 6 arrows? Because you'd lose them over in the grass and you never find them,
No, you never
And
find them in that grass.
no, that you just can't find them. And even a metal detector don't help because the grass is too tall. So, so then I go through that and then get where, okay, I use one arrow for the whole tournament, and then I don't expect to lose any. Once in a while you might on a small target, but um, I always thought it'd be kind of interesting to have, to have the hunter class, but not really a hunting class. Now, what I mean is you score foam is -5, you got 8 and 10. So the only thing that counts, you got an 8 and 10. And if you don't get an 8 or better, it's a -5. Because if you hit them like in the, outside of the kill zone, it's -5.
Well, isn't that called I was watching this the other night and they was talking about that. Is it Fred Bear scoring or
I
uh
I don't know. I,
somebody called
I
it something with somebody's name and I cannot remember what it was now.
yeah,
But
I
I
know.
heard
I,
that.
I'd never heard that until I started saying it. It's like, oh yeah, I think they said somebody did. It's like I didn't know anybody even did that. And it's like that would be a true hunter class,
Yes, it would.
and that means you're better off I can't make this shot. I'm not going to shoot. I'll take a 0.
Right. Instead of a -5.
Right, because a wounded animal is not good.
No, it's not.
It may die, but you're not going to recover it. So that would force you to um, make sure that you can make that shot and go from, take from there. Um, when I was down at PSC, because I was a PSC dealer, about 24 years ago, something like that. And when I was down at their school down in Tucson, Arizona, they said they had um, basically a bionic deer, steel plate with the vitals cut out. And they had a group of people. I don't remember how there's like 3 or 4 guys and a lady or something. And they says, well, you pick the distance you can shoot. First guy gets up, clunk. Next guy gets up, picks the distance he clunk. Went through all the guys and the lady got up, says, no, I can't make this. Walked up like 20 yards and nailed it. you know, go with what you can make. And I hear people say, well, I did this 80-yard shot. You know what it takes to make a bad shot at 80 yards?
Not much.
All that deer's got to do is take one step or a
Or a
little bit
gust
of
of wind
breeze.
come through.
Right. I seen in the background, I said the wind come up for a little bit. If all of a sudden you had a gust, the arrow's off. And now you have a wounded deer. And then
Yes.
this, well, I wouldn't have shot if it hadn't been a big buck. So you're taking a chance of killing this deer for somebody else to find, maybe coyotes, because you made a bad shot. You know, it,
So where did the big deer go to? Not on the wall.
yeah, not in my freezer, that's for sure.
Not in the
But
freezer.
that's that's what you got to know the distance you can shoot.
Yes, you
And
do.
for most hunters, 15 yards is the max.
And that's probably true. That is probably very, very, very accurate.
Well, especially those that have not gone through me teaching them or somebody that teaches like I do to get their groups tight. I've seen many times because I worked at, besides my own shop, I worked at Cabela's and Bass Pro both. And I had this one guy come in 20 yards, his group in probably 6-inch group. One, his draw length was way too long, so I shortened that up. I fixed his form. And now, by the time I got done, 45 minutes later, he's now grouping with about 3-inch group. It's a 3-inch or less group. One, your draw length's too long. One, your shooting form is wrong. One, you're pulling the trigger, which is always my first time when I find out you shoot and release. I said, I'm giving first lesson free. Quit pulling the trigger.
Right.
and then that, depending on what their response is, whether I'll elaborate anymore. Because if they don't have the right response, then they can't be taught. So
Right.
I'm done.
Yes. I
Now,
think I started off with the wrist strap caliper, and then went to the thumb barrel, then went to a hinge, and now I'm back on a thumb barrel. So
now,
on my compound. And see, I shoot my compound in the ASAs, and I shoot my barebow in the IBOs.
oh yeah,
So of course, still with been on with contract with Bowtech and everything else, I feel like I need to stay with that in the ASAs for now, and so just kind of do my part to help them too. And but in the IBOs, yes, I shoot my barebow, and it is such. And I've wondered, and I've even asked the question in some of the barebow groups and stuff, is where's all the 3D shooters when it comes to barebows? And you get several different answers, and most of them want that field. And I think I've finally come to the conclusion on myself that most people want something to aim at. And that's the thing with shooting 3D also, is you don't have a designated spot to aim at. You are area shooting, which is it's about right there. When you're looking through the binoculars and trying to find something that you can kind of find, okay, where do I aim at? And you find that spot, and then it's just an area shoot. It's not a dot on that animal that you can aim. But in hunting, you don't have that dot either. So
right. And what you gotta do is find the spot you want and focus on as if that was the spot. Concentrate only on that spot. And you know, that's something you got to do when you're shooting a caliper or anything else. I've seen a lot of them use the thumb ones, and actually cram on it with their thumb. Start with,
yeah,
you're going to use the least dexterous digit on your hand to try and make that go off.
right.
But yeah, there's just so many things that you can do that changes things, and um, it
Well, when you
just
take your focus, when you take your conscious mind from there, and it's always just focusing there, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, I have to punch that trigger. Well, you've just lost everything.
right.
So
Yeah, it's
it
kind of
takes a
nice you
lot of
brought that up because I say it all the time because you can't focus on pulling the trigger while you're aiming. It's impossible.
right. So you need to learn to subconscious aim and then focus on easing that trigger.
Yeah. Yeah. I just focus. And then once you start the motion, the big muscles, now you can just go through that and force on your concentration on there. Because that's what I tell them. It's like, one of the first things, quit pulling the trigger, and then I'll elaborate. This is okay. Go up like you're shooting, hold your finger out. Now, concentrate on that spot. Don't think about nothing with that spot. Make your finger move without thinking about your finger. And it's like, oh yeah, I can do it. Switch hands. Yeah, I can do it. Lesson's over. I can't teach them.
Right. Right.
Yeah, because if you can't get that concept, then I can't
Conscious
teach you.
mind can only do one thing at a time.
Right. And it's okay. Can you pat your head and rub your tummy? And some can do it because of practice and practice and practice. Like a pianist, playing the piano. They're doing all these kind of things, but they don't start off that good. They
No,
start
they
off
do
like one
not.
hand, other hand, and then finally you can get there, and so you can do it. But pat your head, rub your tummy, and then okay, we'll switch hands, and you know, it, okay, that's what you're trying to do. You're aiming, and you're trying to pull a trigger. You can't do it, and
No, you cannot. No, you cannot. And it's and a lot of your I don't want to be I don't mean this in a rude way, but your backyard bow hunters that they never even draw their bow back all summer long. They wait till a week before hunting season, shoot 4 or 5 arrows, and then come into the shop and say something's wrong with my bow. Well, when you haven't shot it for a year, you probably don't have the same form. You're drawing different, everything, and it's just it breaks my heart. The people that don't take it as serious. I mean, that's you are hunting an animal, and you need to be
right,
ethical about it.
right. And if you want to do that little practice, get yourself a crossbow. They don't take near the amount of practice that a compound does, or near as much as a traditional bow. What's going to take the most is those recurves and longbows.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely,
That's
and that's where I just love the challenge of figuring it out. So,
yeah,
and it's been a journey with me, and I've had a blast with it. I mean, I've still got a ton to learn,
yeah,
but
yeah. There is. There's a lot to learn, and one of the things I learned a little bit more on the release on the recurves. I actually learned this from Jake Kaminsky. I was watching one where everything's kind of in a circle. You go back and when you draw back to anchor point, the hand comes around your face back. Now mine can't go because my arm just won't bend that far. I can't touch my shoulder. If I push my thumb,
oh,
I can touch it. So I come back and I come straight back. So I come back and like I said one time, your job in archery is to store energy. You
yes,
got the energy stored.
absolutely,
Your job is done. Now your only job is to aim. You never pull a trigger. Don't release. And I was watching a video. Um, this archer was having a little trouble with their grouping, and it showed the pictures all over the place. And it was shooting traditional equipment. And so I'm upload the picture or the video, and I'm watching one time hand out, one time down, one time back, one time up. Every time they released, the hand ended up in a deer. I think out of the 6 or 8 shots, only 2 were the same consistent one. And those 2 arrows seem to be somewhat close together. You know,
right.
and and I've even seen though some that should know better, and they'll shoot and hand comes off the side. They're shooting long distance even with them, and their hand is like coming off. It's nothing consistent, and um, yeah,
I
it's
know when I make a good shot with my recurve because when I finish, my index finger just kind of lands right on the back of my neck, right behind my ear, but down a little bit, and it just kind of, and I know that that's been a good shot. Now, when I'm done, if it's not there, then I'm like, okay, where's my arrow? And and when you have a good bow arm too, it will save you. It'll save you a not a horrible release, but not the perfect release either. So a good bow arm will save you a lot of times too, if it's
yeah.
not perfect on this end on a shot.
I've had that too, where um, everything was all right, but the release just wasn't perfect, and still got where I wanted to go. It's just like okay, because everything else was perfect. There was a slight variation, and after I shot, it's like okay, this is not where it's supposed to be. But because up to the point when it released, it was consistent, but then it was off. and not enough to really affect the arrow. And it's like, whew, well, I lucked out on that one.
Right. And I've even gotten to the point, and your shot is not over when that release happens. Your
No,
shot is not over till your arrow is down there. But I've even practiced a lot of times. My shot is not over till I can, and it's a mentally see it going past, but go through that target and it's still going. And that even helps you a little bit with your follow through. I mean, yes, it just hit that target, but mentally seeing it keep going.
focus
And
through the target.
yes, not up to the target, but through the target.
And that's exactly the way we focus when we're breaking boards in martial arts. You focus behind the board or the brick or whatever you're breaking. You don't focus on the front of it because you're stopping at the front. You got to go through the target.
Yes,
And that's a good point to think about. If you're not doing is thinking of it going through the target, watching that knot or seeing that knot just disappear in that target. Which is not, if you're using a dark knock, it's going to disappear when it hits anyway,
right.
especially if you're shooting kind of distance. But that's something is really good. There's all kinds of things, and that's, if you're having trouble, get a hold of someone.
Exactly.
Like we talked about earlier, if you're having trouble with your form, find somebody that can help you out. Send it to the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group. Join that and upload it to there and say, hey, something's not right. And I've helped people just on the internet. My very first online student, I was messaging him on Messenger and talking about it, and he was mentioning he don't have any coaches anywhere close that he can go to, and he's kind of struggling with it. And I says, well, I was thinking about putting together an online coaching program. How about if I coach you for free just to see how well it's going to work on there? So he'd do videos, send them to me, and I'd critique him, go back, and he's getting better and better. And then he joined the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group and invited about 700 of his friends to join, and he got better. And I had another guy who was in Canada, and I'm in Nebraska. So first I'm coaching one guy online in Italy, and then another guy in Canada, and we got on. We spent about 45 minutes on a Zoom call, and he was going from probably 4 inch groups roughly at 20 yards. And then about 2 weeks later, he sent me a picture, 3 arrows touching.
That's
And
awesome.
you, you know,
And that's a feeling that's a feeling that you just can't describe. And
right.
and I've said that with like with the recurve. Sometimes when you're shooting a compound and and you've practiced and what your groups are, what your group size is, and you have one that just and it just frustrates you. You just want to throw it,
Yeah.
Not that I would, but that feeling of. But when I started with the recurve, and all of a sudden I had to go look for that one, it didn't have the frustration. It was like, okay, wait a minute, I can do this, and it made me want to shoot again instead of getting frustrated with the compound because you know where your skill level is with that compound.
Yeah.
But and a recurve, you have a flyer. Everyone, I don't care who you are, you have a flyer sometimes. Like everybody talks about pulling a dimmer. Whenever
Yeah.
they miss the target, because and you never know. The best of us can, best of the best can do it, but
Right.
it's just such a finicky. But and you just it's a passion. It's a passion. It's a love.
Yeah. Well, with a mechanical release, as long as you got the technique down for that, it's going to open the same every time. It's going
Right.
to release that string or the loop. Normally, you're going to use a loop with a release, and it's
Yes.
going to release it consistently every time. Now, if you get a really cheap one, cheap release, yeah, you can't be sure it's even going to hold together. Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
I actually had a release one time, the head broke off on it. I was
Oh wow.
not completely drawn, about 3/4 of the way back, and the head broke on it. And of course, it sent the arrow up into the ductwork at the range. And the head we found about 30 yards, 20 yards down range. we found the head, it broke off, and look at it, it's like, well, that's just a terrible design. Machinist friend of mine machined a new one, but and it was weird. You'll never guess what the name of the release was.
Oh no, what was it?
Fail safe.
Oh, yeah. And I will blank bail outside. I will blank bail in the designated areas with my compound, with my release, but I have a target sitting in the living room in the reclining chair that I will blank bail with my recurve, but I will not pull my compound back with mechanical release in that house. It's a man-made project or a man-made object. So,
Right.
but my fingers are here. Just one of those
Yeah.
things. And I love blank bail, especially in the wintertime when it gets dark earlier. And that's one thing I did this past winter to learn more with my recurve of repeat and getting that where it needs to be, feeling this, feeling that, and being able to stand right there at 4 yards in the living room. Which yeah, finally this was my first year that Troy let me bring a target in the house. So
Oh.
he never would let me before. So, but with the recurve, he let me this winter. He said, "You're not bringing it in the house." Well, he said, "Go ahead. If you're going to shoot your recurve, it's fine."
Yeah, I know the first time I did, the blank belly shoot with your eyes closed, is when I was learning back tension release and, also part of, becoming an instructor and all that kind of stuff. And we're standing so close to it that we can just take a half a step forward, then grab our arrow and pull it. 'Cause there's 20
Right.
of us on the line, so we're not shooting 4 yards away. We're shooting, just a couple feet past the end of the bow. So if you don't have that arrow at least somewhat really close to being straight, you're likely going to bend them because we're shooting aluminum arrows.
Oh
that,
yes.
that 95, we're mostly aluminum arrows, and
Right.
um, it's kind of weird when you go through. Here's the technique: close your eyes, and then you go through and you feel what it feels like, and then it's okay. Open your eyes. Now there's no sight on your bow and no target, so it's just nothing there. And you open your eyes, and then what you just felt is all gone. Close your
It
eyes
is.
and then open them up. And then finally it's like, okay, closed, open, no difference. I can feel that. And then you start worrying about concentrating, and then you concentrate and concentrate. And then eventually you can do that. Put sights on. It all goes away again. So then you go in
That is
sights,
so
eyes
true.
closed, get a form back, pins on there, and you still don't have a target to aim at. You just got the pins on the bow.
Right. Right.
And then you finally, then okay, now we're going to put a target on there, and then you can go from there. But one of the things that I normally will do with a new shooter that I'm teaching, what does a good release feel like? They have no clue.
They have no clue.
And I know, and anybody that's actually knows how to do it. So what I say, okay, I want you to draw back. I want you to aim. You have nothing to do with aim. Take your finger way off the trigger. I'm going to pull it when I want to pull it. You're going to aim. So they're going to aim, 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 and I'm going to squeeze that trigger and go, yeah. The hand's going to jump forward, the arm's going to come back, and it's like, that is a good release. If you don't feel that, it's not good. And
Right.
so now they know what they need to feel, and now that you go through it, okay. And then next thing you know, it's like, oh, okay, I did this wrong. I did this wrong. And it's kind of nice when you can um, help some archers out really, really quick. Uh, I help Nebraska Game and Parks. They've got a lot of women in the outdoor events and different things like that. And so we're teaching a lot of ladies how to shoot. Some of them never shot a bow before. So we're
Right.
teaching them. Now, we don't teach them a closed stance because it's too hard to get that grip right. And so we teach an open stance to them just because safety reasons. Um, and I'll just tell them, okay, I keep a completely closed stance, but if you don't put that arm right, you will hit your arm. So we're going to teach an open stance. You just slide that front foot back just a little bit, and we'll go through that and teach them. And some of we've had some time where they're catching up pretty good and using a release, and I'll show them that. And um, one one time was out there, they buy the cheap releases, the low end releases. They don't put any kind of money into the releases because they're they're banged around and they can get lost and stuff like that. So you're not going to spend a
Right.
lot of money on a release. And I'm trying to get um, this one lady to get on there and do that poem. But that release was so bad, the trigger travel was so far that
Oh.
you could not use the proper technique. So we had to just, okay, we're going to modify this and shoot. I was talking to somebody on one of my podcasts, either one or two before, where he knew a guy that he was a sniper for a long time, squeeze and trigger. And he teaches that squeeze and that trigger because that's what he's done for I don't know how many years, but probably a couple decades anyway. Because when you're shooting a precision rifle, like snipers is precision shooting, and you're going to be in there like we talked about earlier. Well, you're going to put a slight pressure in that trigger until it goes. You're not going to pull on the trigger. It's a slight pressure, a little pressure until it's going to go off. And you're doing the same thing. But you can do that with a rifle because your fine motor skill is only needed for your trigger because everything else is kind of locked in place. You don't have to do all this aiming because the rifle's either using a sling when I was on the rifle team in high school. We added slings, so it was kind of pretty much there. The body was all there. You breathe in and out, nothing's moving. So the only thing you have is your trigger pull. And
Right.
you know, we had in high school we had to have at least a 1 pound trigger pull. Most of them were like 2 or 3 pound trigger pull, which is very light. And they would actually test them. We had a 1 pound weight and it'd hang on the trigger. And if it wouldn't support that 1 pound weight, they had to adjust it up till it would. Because the lighter sugar, you just kind of just touch it and it goes off. Well, that's not safe because you just close the
No,
bolt,
it's
jar it,
not.
and make it go off. So that's the way that one guy taught it was like he's used to shoot for a long, long time. I've had others where they'll do like the hinge, and all they do is just kind of relax their hand and let it fire. Which in doing that, what because with the hinges, for our listeners and watchers that don't know, a hinge, there's no trigger on it. When you pull it back, you've got to make sure you put pressure on the finger forward, the little finger back. If you're pulling upside down, whichever way, because if you pull a little bit on that part, it's going to fire. There's no safety on that. Like there is the other ones. You pull back and you get an anchor point, and then you just kind of, close your hand on it, and then you can just pull through. What happens is you're pulling through that little finger travels more than the index finger and makes it go off. Well, what it's doing is just relaxing uh, the um, the index finger, and it would make it turn and go off. Um, there's so
And
many
when I started
techniques.
learning to shoot a hinge, I always laughed and said, I could pull a Mack truck with this index finger when it came to that hinge because I was not going to relax it. And it took a while to learn to hinge that way because, you know, that's what's going to hold your hinge from going off most of the
Right,
time. And yeah, it was like I could pull a Mack truck with that index finger because I had gotten so used to whenever I started shooting it was that's where all my pressures was. Well, it wasn't going to go off. So I
right.
had to learn how to, yes, it's got to have some relaxation in it in order for it to go off.
Yeah. Well, and then when you get to the thumb releases, those have that little knurled knob on them. On mine, I take it off. I don't need that knurled knob because I bury it into my hand in the meaty part between my index and my thumb, and I have it pretty deep in my hand because I can take on mine. I have a Carter chocolate addiction, so I can put pressure on it, and so I can have my hand is fairly tight around it. I can put pressure on it and just pull through. Well, if I needed force of the fire, I just make tighten up my hand. Just probably can't see it on the video, but just tighten my hand up will also fire it because it's in there and I've got enough pressure on it. Now I can put my thumb on something and hold it and then just pull through. And I have a mindset with the hardest trigger pull you can with the least
Oh,
amount of
really?
travel. I don't you almost can't see it move at all and you can't feel it.
Well, I think
And
is it Michael Braden? Of course, he shoots the index, the wrist sling with the index caliper
yeah,
type release, and I think I've watched some of his videos before. I don't know if he's changed it. He's always had his set at 5 pounds was what his trigger was.
yeah,
So, and then but you have to kind of match it too, just like you was talking about the one that he talks about the squeeze. And of course, then it breaks. But he has taken he is subconscious aiming now. And so when he's pulling, all of his focus is here for the squeeze. Well, if you try to aim and you try to over aim, then you're all over the place.
Right.
So, and to each his own, it's whatever works for you. Some people are better with that. Some people are better, you know, letting the subconscious aim for you and then focusing on your release. Some people are better at focusing down there and let the subconscious shoot the release. And it's just figured it out for your, what works best for you.
Yeah, and that's back to, where I let the subconscious, I consciously focus on aiming. So that's all I'm doing is aiming, aiming, and then the rest goes off because I'm not paying attention to it. I'm just focused
Right.
on aiming. And, each person's a little bit differently. We've talked about probably 20 different methods of doing the same thing, releasing the string.
Right. Exactly. And then you can't expect this person to have his shoulders here and this is here and this is here and you're this perfect form. It's not, everybody's not built the same. So you
Right,
have to, shoot enough to find out what, you know, like I have a herniated disc in my neck. So there's certain things that whenever I draw that I can't draw up and over because it affects this whole right side.
right.
And so, you have to figure out what works for you sometimes. And it's not always perfect. Like, you see Mikey Schlossler and all those that lean back. I mean, but they've got so much weight on their bow, they have to lean back or it'd probably knock them in the floor. But,
Yeah, when
I don't
when
mean
you
that
have
in a
a
bad
heavy
way.
bow,
Yes.
yeah, when you
But
have
so,
that much
it's
weight,
what works for you and your physical makeup. Because physically, we all can't shoot exactly the same form.
no, no, we can't. And that's why I mentioned earlier, I teach exactly this way and then modify it. You know,
Exactly.
if that technique doesn't work for you, because I understand it very well, because I've developed and modified it to work for me the best it works for me because of the my martial arts training and then all the other stuff I've done, and all that all fits into there. And then being an engineer, I'd like to analyze some stuff once in a while, and take a look at different stuff, and then setting the bow up and all that. And I know one time we had a guy in the shop that had MS, so he couldn't bend his arm would just shake because didn't have strength. So we had to lock the arm out, not raise the shoulder up because that causes shoulder problems, drop the shoulder down. So now everything pushed through there. We had to modify stuff a little bit in order for his form to be able to draw that bow. And he came in one time, it's like everybody's talking about, shooting these 100-yard shots. And this is, I shot my last year at 100 centimeters. He was sitting on the back of his truck and just walked out in front of him.
Right?
Yeah, he come in and said that. I was like, that is funny. I'll remember that. Everybody think, oh, they shot that long. 100. I shot my deer at 100 yards. He come in and said, yeah, I shot at 100 centimeters. It's like, huh? Yeah, yeah. Walked out of the back of my truck while he was sitting in there hunting.
That's pretty good.
I,
That's
I've
pretty
seen him
good.
too. I was at one place and we was hunting where we parked and we walked across tracks because he had property on both sides. My tree, I could see the little pond that was there and my truck. And I'm watching the deer walk within 5 feet of the back of my truck. I can see him from my tree stand. Too far to shoot, but
Right.
you know, I'd probably better luck hitting my truck than I would the deer because it was far enough away. But still, it's one of those long ones that
Right.
I don't take those long shots. The longest shot I've ever taken a deer was 40 yards, and that was my first deer I shot.
I
Other
don't
than that, they're
think,
normally 10, 15, long
yeah, I
shots
think
at
my
20.
furthest shot still to this day, my furthest shot's only been like 22 yards. I mean, I've been from last year, it was a 11-yard shot, and then to 17 is my average shots, and that's either from my tree stand or my blind. So it's just there's and there's a lot that goes into it, and that's where too with archery. people that have always gun hunted, rifle hunted, they don't realize the work that goes into the archery, not only just the practice part, but the scent free stuff. Because when you have one looking at you and he's standing there 15 yards away, he's going to smell you if the wind ain't right.
Right.
And even if the wind isn't right, he don't need to smell you. So working on all of that too and learning how to scent free a lot of times. I roll around the leaves whenever before I get to my stand. So I just absolutely get down on the ground and I roll around before I ever climb in my tree stand or
Yeah.
get in my blind.
I had one tree that the tree stand was there, and there's an evergreen tree, you know, right there in front of me. So every time I get in, I'd grab a couple branches and just kind of twist them my fingers, so I had a little bit of that pine scent and,
Right.
natural scent. It's not extra strong or anything else. And um, I had a couple interesting things happen out of that tree stand. One time I had a little button buck come walking in, stood off to my right for 10, 15 minutes, mostly broadside. I could have shot it anytime I wanted. But it's like, okay, you are a perfect decoy, you're perfect warning system for that buck that's coming in or a doe coming in, because he's going to tell me when a big buck's coming because he's going to look and he's probably going to run off.
Right.
It's like, okay, now I know a big one's coming in or a bigger one than him. It could just be, 3 point or 4 point, but because it's just a
Right.
button buck. So I just kind of just watched him and another time on that tree stand, got in there kind of late, a little bit later we wanted to be for the evening hunt. And I climbed up in the tree stand. I got my bow there and I got everything all ready. I grabbed, I got bow hanging up. I got it all ready. And here comes this buck come walking in. So I got to grab my bow, get my arrows in, and I seen it was a buck. And never even paid attention. Then he walked out into my shooting zone, and I just looked where I wanted. I never even seen the rack. I'm looking where I want to shoot, put that arrow, get that arrow in there, draw back. I shoot, runs off, recover him. I go back to when I had my store. I go back. He's in the back of my pickup truck, and I'm sitting in my range. Now look up there. Here's the antler sticking up above the back of the truck. I'm like, that's actually pretty good. It had been, 130s, somewhere around in there. I
Right.
never had him scored because I really don't care about score. I was like, he was a big, and I never even noticed the rack. Even hauling him out, I didn't even pay attention to how big the rack was. We got him. It wasn't until I was sitting there with him back of the truck waiting to go get him checked in, and I noticed how big the rack was.
And that's what it's, when you know that your focus has been on kind of more of an ethical kill, and you keep your focus on your
Yeah.
shot too, and not, oh goodness, look at those horns. You can't eat those horns anyway. But yeah, I think it
Well,
was 3 years ago I killed my first Pope and Young. He was 132 inches, and he was 17 yards. I mean,
yeah,
and until people actually are out there archery hunting, it is so different. I love the archery part of it because you're close enough. You've worked hard enough to get the spot where you want. You've worked hard enough to scent free. That, I mean, I have sat there, and I mean, the youngins come right up there and put their nose right at your blind or something. What is this? And you're sitting right there, and to watch that close and watch the mamas, teaching the babies and slapping them in their head with their front legs. And I have learned so much, and that is so enjoyable to me. That's my serenity. Hunting is my serenity. That's where
yeah,
you go to just escape everything, escape the whole world. And it's just nature. And it's so refreshing. So even if I don't kill a deer that year, I have refreshed and I'm ready for the for the next year to come
yeah,
on.
yeah. Well, and that one tree stand was across the tracks where I see or deer walk by my truck. I'm sitting in that same tree stand, and this doe and this fawn come walking in, and it was probably 15 yards away from me. The fawn lays down, and the doe walks off. So now I have a fawn laying down, probably 15 yards away from me for I don't know, probably half hour or better, and the doe comes back up and picks up the doe, and they go off, and I was like, I'm not going to shoot that doe because I got a fawn with her. It's like I
Right.
don't need meat that bad. Now, if I was starving and I had to live on it, maybe a little different story. But I'm waiting, and if another doe come walking by without a fawn, I'd have shot it.
Right.
But I wasn't going to shoot that one because well, it was more fun watching them.
Oh my gosh, isn't it though? I mean, there's so much to learn from them and to listen to them and the difference in the grunts even. I mean, they'll have a you can watch one deer and she'll have three different sounds of grunts that she does. And
Yeah.
just to sit and learn is it's amazing. It's amazing to sit and learn and just watch them. It's just very enjoyable for me.
I had, if there for a while in Nebraska, you only had two tags. You get two archery tags is all you could get, or two rifle tags, or one. You only two tags all you could get. That's it, no matter which format they was. And I would get two tags. The first one I'd shoot whatever come by. I'd shoot a doe or a buck, whatever. And I didn't really care if I shot bucks or not. I'd shoot doe. Now if a big gut come by, then of course I would. And I'd already shot my doe for the year. And now I'm just waiting. And it's not December. December, I would go ahead and shoot another doe. And this is still in November. And uh, I hear this sound that I just thought it was because duck hunters are out there. I just thought it was duck hunter screwing around his call. And
Right.
no, it was a doe bleating. And I was like, oh, so I got on my grunt call, just kind of, I was kind of shaking a little bit. Terrible grunt. And next thing I know, not the doe that's bleeding, the other big doe come running, and I'm looking at her through my tree stand.
Oh,
She knew exactly where that sound come from. She's running, and she's looking around for a buck. She never looked up because I just did it one time, and I'm looking at her through my tree stand, and then eventually they go walking off, and of course, I hunting buddy, I told him about it, and he said, "Why didn't you shoot it? Well, it wasn't a buck." I was like, "I don't want to fill my tag yet."
right. Well, and 3 years ago, I didn't know a hen turkey could gobble. And then 3 years ago, there she stood under my tree stand, a whole bunch of them. They just come through there in the fall. And she stood, and it was a hen. I don't care. It was a hen. It was not a Jake. It was a hen. And she stood there and gobbled. I was like,
That's
wow.
weird.
Yes. And she was huge. She was like towered over top of all the other turkeys. It was really crazy. It was about, I don't know, there was probably 18 or 19 in the flock. And
Oh,
that one was all hens. And she towered above them all. And then she stood there and she gobbled. And I'm like, okay, that's the first time I've ever heard that. I don't know
yeah.
if that's a thing or not, but she gobbled.
I didn't think the hens gobbled.
I didn't either. But it sounded, how when a Jake just learning how to gobble, how they,
Right.
that she sounded a lot like, now this was fall also. This was in the fall. And she sounded just like a Jake learning to gobble. But it was a hen, just put my hand on the Bible. It was a hen, and she stood there and gobbled, and I was totally amazed. So I was like, "Wow, that's interesting."
Yeah. 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 That's definitely something different.
Yes, and it was pretty crazy. But yeah, they come in, and then I don't know. It was about an hour or two later. There's a group of like, of course, when in the fall, it was right before they all, how they'll in the fall how they'll all flock up kind of together. The gobblers, the
Right.
hens, everything will all be flocked up together. But it was just before they started flocking up too, because it was about an hour and a half later. The bachelorette group, or whatever you want to call them, or bachelor group, they come through, and there was I don't know 7 or 8 gobblers in that group too. So I mean, it was she was with the hens, and it was a hen, and I'm still amazed to this day that I actually got to see that.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. It's like coming across a doe with a rack.
Right, right. It doesn't
It's
happen very often. And I heard one time somebody said something that a lot of times that doe won't shed that rack if they grow one. Some of them do, some of them don't. I don't know. I've never seen a doe with horns yet, so or
yeah.
never shot a doe with horns yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, that would be interesting to shoot it figuring it's a buck and go to clean it and it's a doe.
Right? That would be very interesting. I think, yes. And there's been some nice racks on does.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've watched and stuff, you look at it on the, look it up and stuff on the internet, you'll see some. I mean, some nice racks on some of those does. They're big, which blows your mind how big some of them can get. So
Right.
it's a doe. She's not supposed to have that.
Right. Well, you never know. There's weird things happen in nature, that's for sure.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I had a couple pictures one time on my trail camera that one of the biggest bucks I'd ever gotten pictures of. And of course, I never saw him again. It was early before season came in, and I never saw him again. But he come in, and it was so interesting watching because you could actually watch it all on the trail camera. He was with a spotted fawn too. I mean, it didn't nurse or anything, but he was that spotted fawn was with him, and I kept those pictures for the longest time. I still have the US or the SD card just to save those pictures because here he was. They were nose to nose, and to watch how gentle that and he was huge. To watch how gentle he was with that fawn, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah,
So
that's
I love my trail camera just to get the images sometimes that you get.
yeah, it's kind of where when you get a doe coming in and coming up and got their nose to the camera and it's all this white haze around this nose and his head and
And you see these little hairs sticking up and
yeah, they come up sniffing the camera.
right. I had one back up to the camera one time, and I told Troy, I said, I swear he did that on purpose. It's like because he was pooping right in front. I mean, his butt was right there at the camera, and he started to poop, and it was so funny because it's like he looked back over his shoulder, like he was looking at the camera, going, "Here, take this." I mean, it was one of those comical pictures. It's like he meant to do that.
That'd be one I'd post up on my YouTube channel.
It was comical. So, and I kept that picture too, just because it was one that you wouldn't
It's like,
see normally.
well, the weird pictures and the strange and those are kind of the cool ones that you don't see if you don't have a camera or see if
Right.
you're not out in the woods. Like the birds come landing on the branch in front of you. Um, Squirrels are when you're all in camo, squirrels they can't figure out what you are. You can walk right
Right.
up to a squirrel and they'll just sit there and look at you. They
Right.
can't now if you're not in full camo, then the face and everything, then they're going to spot you and they're going to be run off. But if you're in full camo, they just don't know what you are. Or they can't figure you out.
You can't. I've walked right up on squirrels before. I've had them climb
Yeah.
down the tree before and scare me because I'm thinking if he lands on my shoulder and then they actually sees me, he's going to bite me. So, for them have, I mean, right on the limb beside of you, and then they'll stand there and look at you. And then, of
Yeah.
course, once you scare them, they've done lit up the woods and ran everything off.
Yeah. Well, and then birds landing on branches right next to you. And I had one guy tell me he's like one actually landed on his shoulder. He thought it was a branch, just landed around his shoulder. And it's like, huh, okay, let it sit there.
It's pretty cool up there. I just being out there in the nature and getting to see it. But like you said, with your camera, I mean, you catch so much stuff that you don't get to see because you're there and they have that, animals detect that human presence. But that
Yeah.
camera just, it's pretty neat to see some of the pictures that you get. I love getting my trail camera pictures just to see. I'm always like, what's new today? I mean, I had what do they call it? It's an eagle. He's got like this reddish colored head, and they're an osage or a osprey.
Oh,
Osprey.
yeah.
I had one in my trail camera that landed in the tree right there on the tree limb that you could see, and that was interesting. I went to the DNR officer. I'm like, what is this bird? So, because I had never seen one,
Yeah.
and I've never seen one since. It was just in that picture. So yeah, you get some neat stuff and figuring out how big those squirrels are when they're standing at the side of the tree, and then I've got some that I call my Boone and Crockett squirrels. If they come above, if they're standing on the ground and their feet's on the tree, they're above my knee. So
Oh,
those are Boone and Crockett squirrels. They're big red squirrels. But getting
Yeah,
to watch them in the woods too is hilarious because they don't run. I don't think they can run. They'll waddle down the tree and then they'll waddle across the ground. Then they'll come back and then they'll waddle back up. I've never seen one of them run yet, but they're so big. I don't think they can run. But I laugh and
yeah,
call my Boone and Crockett squirrels. So
I
I need to
yeah,
shoot one and weigh one just to see what he weighs.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and squirrel's good, so
It
why
is.
not?
It's really, and that might be something that recurve this year. I'll be hunting with my recurve this year some.
Oh, yeah,
So that might be some fun things. Put the tips on that you can squirrel hunt with, and by golly, when they come through there, try to squirrel hunt with the recurve too. That would be fun.
yeah,
I'm looking forward to this year, this hunting season, just because of that too.
yeah. That'd
Feeling
be
more accurate, feeling more like I can make an ethical shot with my recurve now, you know, and then getting to go out and hunt with it. I'm gonna have a blast this fall.
well. Nice thing about a squirrel, if you hit it, you've pinned it to the ground, and it ain't going anywhere.
Right? Let him just give him a minute, then just go out and get him and put him underneath your blind or somewhere that you can't. Cover him up with some leaves. He'll be fine till you leave.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be fine.
Yes. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this fall hunting just because I get to take my recurve out and be a lot more confident with it.
Well, what would you kind of tell somebody that's um, thinking about getting into archery? What advice would you give them?
Talk to somebody you trust and let them help you a little bit too. Be open minded, listen, to some of the stuff, and then it's so fun and it's so addicting watching that arrow fly. And when it hits the X, that's one of the most rewarding feelings that you will ever have.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, when you finally get to where you're starting to hit that X in there, um, that's quite an accomplishment, and
It
many
is.
archers can't do it consistently.
Right.
And unless they've pretty much, I'm going to say very few have figured out how to do it without somebody helping them, a coach of some kind, whether it's somebody you hire to be constantly your coach, or somebody has just helped you out one time or something. And you need to have a coach. All
You
athletes and
do.
professionals have coaches.
Right. And if you do get into it, and then when you get to feeling a little more confident or something, then and you have issues, then yes, absolutely get a coach. I mean, I had Troy, so he was one of
Yeah,
the best there was. So, and he's one of the best bow technicians that there is. I mean, he knows what he's doing, he knows his stuff. And he has, I mean, he's my backbone. Without him, I mean, I probably wouldn't have been able to do what I've done. So, I mean, tuning broadheads. I mean, of course, when I shoot fixed blade, he's a book of knowledge. And it's
yeah.
pretty cool to have somebody like that in your corner.
And you have access to him 24/7.
Yes, I have access to 24/7, so I can say, "Hey, we need to fix this," or. But he has taught me pretty much. I come to him pretty rough, so I mean, like I said, hadn't shot past 20 yards for 12 years, so he's taught me a lot since then, and took really brought me on, and yeah, it's been a pretty cool journey.
Well, the biggest thing though is you're open and coachable.
Yes, and
That's
you have to be open minded when it comes to with somebody trying to help you.
and even I've had a time that an archer I know, they shoot traditional, and the coach that they had is well-known coach. In fact, they're related to Big Boat accessory company, and he was wanting to teach them something completely different and getting confused, and I'm not going to coach them, but I started asking enough questions, and it's like, Ah, okay, that's what it is. And I've done that, in engineering. It's like I had one guy call me and it's like, I'm having trouble with this. Didn't have a clue what the program did he was working on. So I'm asking all these questions, asking question, because I'm trying to figure out what it's supposed to do. And by the time I'm done asking a question, oh, that's the problem. You know, the kids, you get away from what you're focused on and step back and start thinking about other things, and then you can go back into it. And sometimes just going to bed and sleeping. If you're struggling with something, I've solved many problems by, go to bed, wake up in the morning, it's like, oh, that's the solution.
Right? And if it's
That's
really,
it.
really bad, stop. Don't keep putting it in. Just stop. Walk away. Go back to it. And if
I
you
have one.
don't feel like shooting at that time, don't shoot because you're only going to maybe hurt yourself more because you don't feel like shooting that day. So you're not going to be 100% you.
I've
So
I've done that.
take all that.
When I was in an archery club. It was busier after 9 o'clock than it was between 5 and 9. So got the kids bed. I drive down to the range, go in. I think I shoot 3 or 4 arrows. I went home. I wanted to go shoot and nothing seemed to be working. So go home. I threw on talked to some archers for a little bit and then went home. But
Right.
I just couldn't shoot, and it's just one of those things that I didn't have a tournament. I was trying to force myself to get ready or anything. I just wanted to go shoot my bow, and
Right.
then it just didn't feel right, and so I went home instead of developing bad habits. You
Exactly.
know,
And that's what it is. If you don't feel like if something's not going right, it will cause you to create bad habits if you
right,
just keep doing it. So, and your self-image has a big part of your, you know, which is your confidence too. You know, you start getting bad, you just walk away. Just walk away, take a
right.
deep breath, and even if it's for that whole day, that's fine. Just walk away and then come back whenever get a
Well,
fresh mind.
yeah, I've seen some posts and other forums and stuff. It's like, well, what's wrong with my form? What should I do? Response is shoot more. No,
No.
that's not. No, don't shoot more. We need to figure out what's wrong with your form. You're better off to shoot 10 perfect shots than 100 bad ones.
Yes, or 100 different ones.
Right. Or yeah. Bad being different than what you need for your technique. And
Right.
that's what you
And
need to
then,
figure out your technique.
and it's shooting and when it comes to a tournament, it's one arrow. It's not the whole tournament. It's one arrow. You have to make that one shot. And then you come up
Yeah.
to the next target and it's that one shot.
Yeah. And I go to tournaments sometimes and they'll say, well, you want to warm up? No, I don't get to warm up on a deer. First
Right?
shot counts.
It does. It really sometimes I warm up. Usually I won't even sometimes I will, but usually it's 5 to 8 arrows before I walk out. But if I like especially with the recurve's so much easier. I mean you don't have all that stuff to tote with you either. But you know, I'll walk up to the first target or right before when we just get there or whatever, I'll just grab my bow and, you know, draw it back a few times. It's my recurve. So, I don't do it without an arrow no matter what. If it's a recurve
Right.
compound or what, never do it without an arrow. But just get that stretch and okay, let's go.
Yeah, and that's what I'll do is, that's what when I get in my tree stand, I get everything all set, I'll draw it back. Of course, with an arrow in it because I got to release, and
Right.
and I'm gonna just kind of move around. It's like, okay, check all my stuff, make sure okay, if I go from here to here, branch is gonna hit my arrow. Okay, I need to trim or do something. So I have my range in there. Now, once you're in a tree multiple times, that I just drop back to make sure everything is okay. Because I'd rather know that there's a problem when I draw back before I'm drawn back on a deer, because then there's nothing you can do at that point. At least before you
Right.
might be able to fix something, As they draw back, it's like, oh, string's loose on my peep's not tied in, it's hanging. So let down and you can just kind of work it and tie it off and fix it. I
Right.
don't normally carry a bunch of repair stuff with me, but you know,
Sometimes it pays off to carry some of that little bit of stuff with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I always tell archers, you want to wax your string before you go hunt every time. Now, don't use a whole lot of wax on it. Put a little wax on it. And I like the scorpion wax.
Oh yeah.
Um, and they come with a little leather pad in there. Take that pad out, throw it away. Never use that pad.
Really?
Yeah. The reason being, you can't feel how hot that string is. You can actually wear that string out with that piece of leather. Put it on your fingers. It won't hurt your fingers. Rub it on your fingers. You will not hurt that string because your fingers are going to burn before that you'll ever hurt the string.
Right.
And that allows you to feel the string. Is there any bumps in it? Could mean there's a broken or defect in your string. The leather, you will not feel it. Rub it up and down there, and then you can see, or not see, but you can feel anything that's in there, and the fingers warm it up enough that it melts into your string. Where the leather will melt it by rubbing it up and down, getting friction, but the friction also wears your string. Your fingers soften it just by the heat in your fingers, and now then there's nothing wrong with your string before you go out. And now any brush and stuff is okay. But I would do that, even if you do it before you leave home, but wax it every time before you go out. Now I've seen people with great big clumps of wax on it. All you do is waste in your wax.
Right.
Yeah. When I had my story, I used to tell people it's like use your string wax. You're gonna lose it before you wear it. You're not gonna use it up. You're gonna lose it before then. I told it to a guy. He walked out. It was still sitting on the counter. He lost it before he got out of the store. He come back. It's
Oh,
like, I told you, use it. You're gonna lose it before you wear it out. I didn't think you were gonna lose it that day.
right. I think I have a tube of the brown ale wax, and
Yeah,
it's one of those big tubes. And I think
yeah,
that's what I use that one more than anything now. So I've
yeah.
used a
And then
lot of them.
and a lot of traditional strings like the beeswax.
Oh, I've never used the beeswax.
Yeah, you can use beeswax. Now, the cheapest way to get beeswax, buy a toilet bowl ring.
To do a
It's
what?
beeswax. The rings you put on for your toilets, the little
Oh
wax rings to
yes.
seal it, that's beeswax.
Is it really?
Yeah.
No wonder it's
Now,
so sticky.
yeah. Now, I don't use it, but I have so much the other that I have the little tubes of the
Right.
they're about, you know, I don't know,
Like
3 or 4
chapstick
inches
size.
long. Yeah, a little bit bigger than a chapstick size.
Okay.
They're probably about a half-inch diameter, and those will last a long time.
Yes, they
I've got
will.
tubes I've had for decades, and I just use them and a little bit on there and wax them and go. But you know, if your string is like if you have a black string and it's starting to turn white, something is hitting it and wearing it out because it should not turn white under any
No.
conditions. Should it ever turn white? Normally, what you see is when they have the peeps on, they have the little rubbers on them to uh, align the peep. Those come back and always hit the string. So you're always going to see where that piece of rubber tubing hits that string. And that's why I don't like them. I
Right.
use one that just split in two. They got
Right.
some that you split in three. It seems like no matter what I do, I always got one of those strands in my vision. So I like the two. And there's a way you can draw it back. If you have a good quality string on, you can draw it back and roll back the same time every time. Mine doesn't come straight. It's actually cocked at an angle because I draw back. It has like a quarter turn and lines up. So you can adjust them. And
You can, and I train my string a lot of times. Just if it's got a turn, I'll go the opposite way, like 3 or 4 twists, and kind of just warm it up and let it fall back. And you can start training your string too to where
yeah,
it'll always come back the same.
well, and
Which
you
I
can
don't. I
take
use target peep, so
you can take on your loop for those shooting releases, and you can, if you need to get like an eighth of a turn on it, just take that loop and roll it around the direction you want to rotate that string, and just kind of twist it. It's not going to
yes,
change enough because you're not even going down a full width of the string. You're not doing a full turn, you're gonna do a full turn, then you need to take the
You
string
flip
off
it.
and twist in it. Yeah. But this is just that little fine tune. It's just not perfectly lined up to get it perfectly lined up. You can tweak that a little bit that way. The other way you can do it is you can move a strand from one side, move one way and the other way. So it's still in the middle because now you got that twist will actually turn that peep a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So you can
Uh-huh.
adjust the peep and on your higher poundage bows, you don't have to tie your peep in.
Right.
You don't have to. Now, a low poundage bow, you probably would, but when you're shooting 60, 70 pounds, there's enough pressure on that. If you dry fire, all bets are off anyway. But
Right.
uh, if you don't dry fire, now I don't actually serve around the peep itself. I just hit a knot above and below, and you can also use those to rotate your peep.
Yes, you can.
By loosening the top one and tighten the bottom one, it's going to force whichever the string is rotating. And so you can adjust them. There's all kinds of fine tuning that you can
There is
do to that
all
bow,
kinds.
which probably he knows all those tricks.
Oh yeah.
He knows all
But
those
and
tricks.
and I still tie the peep in too because with tournament archery and I shoot a clarifier, so
Yeah,
there's a lot of glass in that too. So
you have a little
it
bit
needs
more
to be
weight.
tied in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, a little more weight and something like that. Yeah, definitely. Once you get it set, then it just
Right.
takes a couple knots around the peep itself and hold it in. But you can still use the knot above and below
Yep.
to turn it.
Yes, you can.
Once you get the height, that doesn't change. Um, and as you draw back, if it's not lining up, you can take your fingers so that if it does shoot, it pulls out of your fingers. So make sure you go from the backside and you can kind of twist it. Like, okay, so now you've got the height. Now then you can tie the peep in so it won't move. And now then you can work on adjusting it. But if you have to move a strand from one side to the other, you got it tied in. So I wouldn't tie it in until I get it where it shoots every time.
Right. And then turning it and twisting a little bit on your string and I just use rub my fingers just enough to get it a little bit warm and try to train that string a little bit too.
Yeah,
And it's usually so minute.
right.
So minute that it's just that little teeny bit that it don't want to finish.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking for over 2.5 hours now.
Have we really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's been quite a conversation. I just like because on my Zoom on screen it tells me how long I've been running.
Oh,
I was like, oh, okay.
it's all good.
I just looked up. I was like, oh man, we just get talking about all kinds of things, and it's just that's the thing about archery. You get
Oh my
talking, and
gosh.
it can go for hours, and um,
Yes, it can. And I'm so ADHD a lot of times you never know what's gonna where my mind's gonna go to next. So that's a hard thing with archery too, is having ADHD. So
yeah.
you're just so scatterbrained and at work they've got my little cubby hole at work. I work at a screen printing place and in my little cubby hole there's a sign out front that says the squirrel cage. So I'm like, well, yeah, it does. So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah. Like you'll say you're focused on squirrel. Or come to the side, it's like, okay, something else got your attention.
And sometimes it is that bad, but sometimes it's not either. But archery has gives you something to focus on too. So it helps with it too. It helps you learn to maintain it a little bit better. It's hard, it's still hard. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just let everybody know. We've had a great conversation here. I've really enjoyed talking with you. And
well, I've
um,
enjoyed it too. It's my first
that,
podcast ever, so
that's good. I'm glad to come on mine first.
yes.
But if you want to watch the podcast, you can go out to my profile and we recorded it live there, and it'll be there for a while. But probably the best place to watch it would either be on my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix Yourself, or probably a little better than that is go in Arch Talk One-on-One group. Go ahead and join that group. It's a private group. We don't sell you anything in there. We don't allow people to, sell stuff. It's not a sell site. But if you want to Get some advice on some of these problems. If you've had some of these problems that we've been talking about today, take a video of it, um, and then just upload it to the group. Don't put in a YouTube link because then we get all that other ad stuff on there. Just take it on your phone, upload it from your phone to the group, and say, hey, here's what you're struggling with. If it's a bow setup, send it up because, there's somebody out there that may have had that same problem and solved it for you. Or if you have a shooting form, we go out there. And there's actually some videos out on my YouTube channel as well as in the group on some shooting instruction that I've done and, different pointers. And if there's a different problem, hey, right up. That's kind of the fun part. We all like
And,
looking at these
and
problems.
if it's form question, don't just send a picture of you shooting one arrow either.
No, no, we want to see multiple shots, uh,
Yes.
because like that one we talked about earlier, each release was different.
Right.
And that's why they couldn't group. There was nothing there, inconsistency. So just go ahead and upload them. And if you want to just listen to the podcast while you're driving or something, wherever you get podcasts, I start off with Spotify and then it sends them out to other places that host podcasts, as well as go out to audible.com. There you have all kinds of Audible books and stuff. Just type in Arch Talk 101 and it's going to come up. It's free to listen to. The podcast, there's no cost to that. So you can do all this for free and get some information. And if you want some more intense instruction, get home. We can arrange something. We can set up a program that we can meet and get together and help with problems. And that's something that is always good and that might be something I just kind of maybe I'll start something like that in the group. If there's not people interested in getting together and just talking about problems, hey, just leave a comment. You can always get a hold of me. My name is Roy Canterbury, and I'm the host here on Arch Talk 101. And Shelly Harper here is somebody else that's going to be helpful. If you have any questions, get a hold of one of us. We're glad to help, and that's fun part. I like seeing new archers just
Yes.
but especially somebody that is not even thinking about shooting a bow and they say, hey, you want to take a shot, and it's like, nah, take just one shot, and it's like, can I do it again? Eh.
Right.
That's the part that's really exciting because now this is someone that's interested in something and you can teach them to do
Yes.
that. um,
And
I
if you're
had
new to tournament archery, when you come to a shoot, that's probably one of the biggest things about, the ASA, the IBO, any of that. When I don't do a whole lot of the indoor stuff, but with that, people are there. I mean, and they're not there to beat you down. They're there to compete with you, but they want to beat you on your best day. And they're going to help you. If you've got questions, I mean, and you're out there on the range, people are going to be supportive and you're going to create a whole nother family. And it's like
right.
a family. They are, I mean, the people there are so supportive. And I think that's one thing too that really draws you back all the time. It's like, once a month you get a family reunion.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's a community it's a very trustworthy community. Most I took my sister to the first couple ASAs, and I asked her finally after the second or third one. I said, "Well, what do you think about the archery community?" And her comment hit me, and I've told a couple people, but she said, the people in archery are good people. She said the bad people in archery is like the good people in the world. I said, that's a really good way to put it because I mean, it is. I mean, people in the archery community are there. They are supportive. They're going to, do what they can to help you or put you in the right direction to get the help that you need.
yeah. I had one guy I was talking to, and he said the guy he was competing, he was having problems. The guy his direct competition was helping him, just like you said.
Absolutely.
I want to beat you at your best. I don't want you having problems and beat you when you're having problems. I want you at your best. I want to beat you when you're on your top. I
Right.
don't. Yeah.
Well, at the Gator Cup, did you see at the Gator Cup, um, Ava in the female barebow class, Ava ended up winning it. Something happened on her bow. I haven't got to watch the whole thing. Something happened on her bow And the girl she was competing, this was for the gold. This was the gold and silver competing. And something happened on her bow. Well, she didn't have the tool, but the lady that was she was competing with had what she needed and handed it to her, and they got it fixed real quick while they were down there pulling the arrows. And if it wouldn't have been for her helping her, I mean, she wouldn't have beat her either. So it's yes, people are very different in archery.
Yeah. Well, and you feel okay, you've got your bow case with hundreds to thousands of dollars worth of not 100,000, but it could be hundreds of dollars or thousands, a couple $1,000s of equipment sitting in this bow case, and you're not worried someone's going to just pick it up and steal it.
No,
Y- You
no,
know,
exactly.
you know, the only thing you have to worry about is if you have a lot of the same bow cases, like those Pono bow cases,
Right.
they may not realize which one it is they grab until later. That's why my bow case has all kinds of different stickers on it that you can't confuse as yours. When you have a bow with paintball stickers on it and other stuff like that on there too. So
Right.
yeah,
I use a
then
soft
it's
bow
your
case,
bow.
so mine's got my name in the corner and everything. So, but yeah, like you said, I mean, and it's not. I mean, especially the cost nowadays of bows. You've got a couple $1,000s or $3,000 to $4,000 laying in all that, and it's not. People don't just walk by. They're not thieves, and they just it's just a different community. I mean, it's unreal the community in today's time that is there.
Yeah. Well, it's been really great talking with you. We do kind of need to go here.
Yeah.
We're kind of pushing a little bit long here, but yeah, it's been so much fun. I could sit and talk with you for hours
It
more,
has
but
been fun. It's been a lot
we,
of
we-
fun.
but we both have things we need to go do. So
Yes.
so my name is Roy Canterbury. I've been your host on Arch Talk 101, and Shelly Harper's been our special guest today, and we'll catch you on the next one. And make sure if you have any questions, contact one of us.
Absolutely.